Once upon a time, in a house so old it groaned when the wind blew, lived a ghost named Barnaby. Now, Barnaby wasn't your typical spooky, chain-rattling, go-boo-in-the-night kind of ghost. In fact, Barnaby was terrified of the dark. Yes, you heard that right. A ghost who was afraid of the night. It's like a fish being scared of water, or a bird being scared of the sky. It just didn't make sense. Every evening, as the sun would dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, a tiny little shiver would run down Barnaby's see-through spine. He'd float nervously from window to window, watching the last sliver of daylight disappear. "Oh, dearie me," he'd whisper to himself, his voice sounding like rustling leaves. "Here it comes again." His ghostly friends just couldn't understand it. Griselda, a ghost who loved to rearrange the library books alphabetically by the author's middle name, would float over and say, "Barnaby, darling, what is the matter? Nighttime is our time. It's when the humans are asleep, and we have the whole house to ourselves. It's prime haunting hour." Sir Reginald, a ghostly knight who still wore his clanky, transparent armor, would add, "Indeed, young Barnaby, the darkness is our cloak, our stage. It is when we perform our grandest spooks." But Barnaby would just shake his head, his form wobbling like a jelly in a slight breeze. You see, Barnaby's fear of the night wasn't just a silly quirk. It was rooted in his past. Back when he was, well, not a ghost, something terribly embarrassing happened to him one night. He was a boy named Barnaby then, and he had a magnificent, prize-winning pumpkin in his garden. One Halloween night, he decided to sleep in the garden to protect it from pumpkin snatchers. But in the middle of the night, a group of mischievous badgers, led by a particularly cunning one named Bartholomew, rolled his pumpkin away and replaced it with a very large turnip. When Barnaby woke up, he was heartbroken and terribly embarrassed. Ever since that night, the darkness reminded him of his great pumpkin tragedy. The memory just felt 10 times sadder when the moon was out. But that wasn't the only reason. The night held other, more spectral dangers for Barnaby. You might think ghosts are the top of the spooky food chain, but you'd be wrong. In the world of the ethereal, there are creatures that even ghosts are wary of. And Barnaby's biggest fear was the sock-stealing gremlins. These weren't just any gremlins. They were nocturnal, invisible to humans, and had an insatiable appetite for single socks. They would creep into the house after dark, their tiny, mischievous giggles echoing only in the ears of ghosts. Barnaby had once tried to stop them. He puffed up his chest, tried his spookiest boo, and floated right in their path. The gremlins just giggled, ran straight through him, and tickled his ghostly essence until he felt like he was made of fizzy soda pop. They left him dizzy and disoriented, and they got away with 3 pairs of mismatched socks. Since then, the sound of their nighttime giggles sent him hiding behind the curtains. There was another, even more personal reason for his fear. For most ghosts, nighttime is when their powers are at their peak. They can float through walls with ease, make objects levitate, and whisper spooky things in people's ears. But for Barnaby, it was the opposite. As soon as the last ray of sunlight vanished, his ghostly powers would fizzle out like a damp firework. He called it his ethereal power drain. During the day, he could float up to the ceiling and practice making funny faces in the dusty chandelier. He could glide through the kitchen and subtly switch the salt and sugar shakers, just for a little daytime fun. But at night, he could barely lift himself a foot off the floor. Sometimes, he'd try to float through a door and just bounce off with a soft boof. It was incredibly frustrating. Sir Reginald would be practicing his phantom sword fighting in the hallway, and Griselda would be recataloguing the entire attic, while Barnaby was stuck on the bottom step of the staircase, unable to even float up to his favorite napping spot on top of a wardrobe. The darkness also made his other memories feel so much stronger. During the day, he could remember the fun things from his life. The taste of strawberry ice cream, the feeling of swinging high on a swing set, the smell of his mom's baking. But at night, the only memories that came to visit were the unfinished ones. He remembered a model airplane he was building. It was a beautiful biplane with red wings, and he was just about to glue on the final propeller when he became a ghost. Every night, the image of that unfinished plane would float in his mind. He could almost feel the smooth balsa wood and the sticky glue. It was a constant, gentle reminder of something left undone, a project he could never, ever finish. The night was a giant dark blanket that seemed to wrap him up in all his unfinished business. He'd remember the library book he never returned, the apology he never gave to his friend for eating the last cookie, and the ending of a mystery novel he never got to read. So, one night, Barnaby had had enough. He was tired of being a scaredy ghost. While Griselda and Sir Reginald were having a grand time making the grandfather clock chime 13 times, Barnaby hovered over to the youngest human in the house, a little girl named Lily. Lily wasn't afraid of ghosts. In fact, she left out little drawings for them, hoping one would be her friend. Barnaby hovered by her bed, feeling his powers flicker. He managed to gently knock a book off her nightstand. Lily stirred and turned on her little star-shaped nightlight. The soft glow filled the room, pushing back the deep shadows, and in that gentle light, Barnaby felt a little bit of his strength return. He could float a little higher. The memory of the badgers and the pumpkin seemed a little less sad. He couldn't hear the sock-stealing gremlins at all. Lily sat up and saw him wobbling in the air. "Are you the ghost?" she whispered, not scared at all. Barnaby managed a small, wobbly nod. "Are you scared of the dark?" she asked. Barnaby nodded again, a little embarrassed. Lily smiled. She reached over and handed him a small, battery-powered glow stick from her bedside table. "Here," she said. "This can be your nightlight, so you don't have to be scared." Barnaby looked at the glowing stick, then back at Lily. He took it in his translucent hands. It wasn't as bright as the sun, but it was his. A small, brave light to hold against the vast darkness. From that night on, Barnaby wasn't quite so scared. He would float through the house with his little glow stick, a tiny beacon in the night. The sock-stealing gremlins still came around, but the glow stick seemed to confuse them, and they mostly left him alone. His powers didn't fully return, but he could at least float up the stairs without bouncing. And when the sad memories came, he would just look at his little light and remember the kindness of a small girl, a new, happy memory to think about in the dark. Barnaby was still a ghost who was a little bit afraid of the night, but now he had his own little light to help him through it. And sometimes, that's all you need. Thanks for watching our story today. If you liked Barnaby's adventure, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more tales from our creaky old house. See you next time.